Bring in PJ Crowley for more on all of this. He's a former spokesman for the U.S. State Department. He's also a professor at George Washington University. This isn't the first time John Kerry's tried to engage the groups in the Middle East. Hasn't had much success there. What do you make of the talks with Netanyahu?
Well, I think this is different. We're not talking about a breakthrough on a framework agreement. We're talking about trying to put a fire break around a spark that has lit a fire and trying to prevent it from spreading. It is bad. It can get worse.
He's going to also meet with Mahmoud Abbas. What do you think is going to come of that?
Well, you've had some very significant accusations going in both directions. That delegitimizes one, accuses the other of incitement. What you really need to do is have these leaders start to step back, make sure security cooperation continues, and try to find a way to put a lid on the violence that we are seeing.
You say step back. A recent poll of Palestinians, 2/3 of them want him just to step down. They want Abbas gone. He's kind of weakened, and it seems like that may be part of the problem as well.
Well, I mean, there is a very significant legitimacy question for the Palestinians. They haven't had an election in a long time. There is not a process going on. The peace process, as we know it, is in a coma, and that's part of the dynamic here, that in the absence of a hope that something will improve, people just act as we've seen them tragically out of frustration.
You said coma. I remember back in 2009, I wanted to get the quote because George Mitchell was sent off to the area by President Obama, and he said, we want progress, not just photo ops. We saw another photo op today, sure. Netanyahu and Kerry. It seems like that it's kind of stuck in the photo op.
Well, I think really the real key dynamic here is between Prime Minister Netanyahu and Abu Mazen. There's no trust between them. It's my personal belief that to get back to a peace process, you're going to have at least one, if not two, leadership changes. That obviously will take some time.
And what about Netanyahu's comments about the Holocaust inciting quite an outburst, a firestorm, really, of reaction?
Again, that's exactly what we were talking about. That there are claims and counterclaims. I think even his strongest supporters are going, where did that come from? I think these guys have to try to work more earnestly, to stabilize the situation. I don't see there's going to be a breakthrough here, but and there's danger here because all of a sudden the other day you see the Islamic State wading into this and saying, hey, escalate, escalate, escalate. I think what we're seeing right now is primarily individuals, but obviously if this were to get folded into the larger conflict, it can be a really, really serious situation.
I think it was about a year ago. I remember Ban Ki-moon at the UN saying, look, we can't keep doing this, where we go in after and we try and rebuild these areas and spend millions, billions. We've got to come up with a solution. He's also going back to the region, but it's just such a tough one, isn't it?
Well, the dilemma here, Mike, is that we actually know the parameters of the solution. There are some things to negotiate, but this is as much a political challenge as anything. We've been at this for 20 years. We kind of know what to do, but what we have not yet seen on either side is the political will and the confidence and the trust to make the very difficult compromises that we required to get to an actual agreement. And sadly, the conditions right now don't favor that, and so all you're trying to do is put out the fire, stabilize the situation, and then hope for a change in conditions that allow you to make progress down the road.
Is it key that there needs to be leadership change on both sides because of this mistrust that you're talking about? Well,
the other aspect, though, is there's been a change. 20 years ago, we thought that this was the central conflict in the region. That's not necessarily the case. What is going on in the territories is very dangerous. But by the same token, John Kerry's other conversations about the conflict in Syria are also very significant. And probably when you look across the region, more people are worried about what's happening in Syria than are worried about what's happening in the Palestinian territories. And that's part of this dynamic, is people don't want to be left behind. And so sometimes you have people acting, sometimes it's Hamas, other times to bring focus back to this conflict. But this is the reality in the Middle East. You don't have one conflict going on, you have several all at once. And the danger here is that they just continue to spread and metastasize, and then you kind of don't know how to solve it.
So we're just about out of time. But it does lead to the next round of talks, which are in Vienna, which we're concentrating on Syria. How important are they? They
are very important. Obviously, I think John Kerry, to hear from Sergei, for example, in Russia, how'd your conversation go with Bashar al-Assad, and is he any closer to leaving, or is your boss any closer to pushing him out than we saw in the last couple of weeks? But I think what that picture tells us is that this is what Russia's about. They're still about protecting the Assad regime, but what John Kerry is going to try to do is try to figure out, is there a path forward towards a political solution?
PJ, always a delight having you on, and I'm sure you're probably delighted not to be talking about Hillary Clinton with us for a change. Thanks.